For the most part, terrorists are people who are well educated. The majority of them, particularly those that operate in Western Europe, for example, have at the very least a secondary school education, and in many cases are university trained, and there are a large number of advanced degrees. When states come into the act, they not only provide the terrorists with more resources, intelligence, technical know-how, specialized ammunition, and specialized explosives, things that enable them to operate at a higher level, but they also reduce the constraints on them. The recipients of this support no longer have to worry about constituents, political calculations. All they have to do is please their government client. And so we see that state-sponsored terrorist groups are 8 times more lethal than those that receive little or no state support.
In a very organized and calculated way, decided to resort to terrorism as a low-level conflict, as a convenient substitute to traditional warfare, in order to achieve specific foreign policy objectives.
So it is a type of war out there. And Brian Jenkins knows that the people fighting it don't play by the rules we understand.
And so when we talk about terrorists like that, some of these normal deterrents that we think about, those things that would deter an ordinary person from carrying out an action, may not necessarily apply to some of these terrorist groups. They are willing to die. More importantly is that they're willing to kill for their causes.
Particularly in a country with such open borders.
Terrorists can attack anything, anywhere, anytime. And governments can't protect everything, everywhere, all the time.
Wherever they are, terrorists are well organized and protected by networks of sympathizers. They're masters of deception, speed, and surprise. As they learn from their mistakes and often receive training and support from other countries, they become more innovative and destructive.
To believe that they would not try to emulate that success here in the United States would be totally naive on our part.
The only outward sign today of the explosion was 3 blown-out windows on the Capitol's 2nd floor. Police said the bomb was planted in an alcove along the hall behind the Senate chamber. The cleanup was well underway when cameras were allowed in today, but the destruction of the woodwork and plaster inside the bombed-out alcove was clearly visible. In the Republican cloakroom, workers used vacuum cleaners to mop up shards of glass that had been hurled in all directions. Plaster dust was everywhere. Walls had been chipped by flying debris. Historic paintings, apparently ruined, had been removed.
Had we been in session at 11 o'clock, beyond the shadow of a doubt, there would have been grave injury and perhaps loss of life to members and staff caused by the explosion which occurred in the Capitol.
The group claiming responsibility for the bombing calls itself the Armed Resistance Unit and said in a so-called communique today it opposes U.S. imperialism in Grenada, Central America, and Lebanon. The same group also said it set off a bomb at Fort McNair here in April.
Nobody was injured at Fort McNair. But since imperialism means exerting any kind of influence over another country, you can bet that terrorists who see us as imperialistic aren't going to stop trying.
An act of terrorism is carried out by an organized group for some political end. The essential characteristic of terrorism is that the act of terrorism is intended to produce psychological effects beyond the immediate physical effects of that violence. Terrorism is aimed at the people watching.